Hello and welcome to my epic cooking class this evening. I am happy to welcome you into my kitchen for this cooking class, and we are going to look into something really interesting as I will be sharing a recipe. And while I share the recipe, I will be telling you a few tips about how to reduce menstrual cramps. So this can apply to other kinds of pain as well because it will be actually anti-pain food tips. So are you ready to get started? I'd like to start by introducing myself. So my name is Charlotte Habegger. I am an independent consultant and director with Habegger. So I bring to you recipes that are easy, quick, simple, inexpensive, and do not contain processed foods or toxic chemicals. So that's the goal in what I'm sharing. I want it to be easy for you. I would like you to be able to prepare these recipes with anything you have in your refrigerator or your cupboard. So I give you tips on substituting as well. And my goal is for you to be able to live your epic life by eating healthy and also not having to spend too much time in the kitchen if that's not what you want. So I use Habegger products. Habegger is a Canadian-based company. It's also sold in the United States. You can order online on my website. And they are healthy meal solutions. Actually, the only ones I know that do not contain certain other types of ingredients you might find in some spice blends in stores, and you can order online, so it comes directly to you. They're meal solutions, so you actually have recipes with them that allow you to make anything you want to have at home, from buttered chicken to spaghetti sauce in your home with what you already have. I usually do vegetarian recipes. Actually, I'm more of a vegan tendency of kind of a cook. And though you can adapt to whatever you use for your protein source. Let's get started. Today we're going to do a recipe meal, rice meal. So it's something that we make every single week in our home. Actually, my daughters usually cook this recipe. It's veggies and rice. So that sounds simple, but I'll give you a couple of tips along the way so you can make it super tasty. And you could actually have a different kind of rice menu every single day if you wanted to. There's different kinds of rices to begin, and then there's also different kinds of veggies and ways that you can cook the whole thing and how you can get it to the final result. So I also prepared some tips on reducing menstrual cramps, and I will be sharing that. So I just want to be sure that the rest of the video is working. Checking that right now, and you can type into the comments if you're watching live. If you're watching on the replay, you can write replay #replay so that I know that you watched afterwards. And I'd love to see your comments and your suggestions as well. So I did prepare a couple tips I have here about how you can use food against menstrual pain. Food is powerful. Hey, food is really powerful. I have to share with you something in my family. So my grandfather was a professor, and he also did some research in criminology. He also was a journalist. He's not alive anymore, unfortunately. And I did some research into what he did as far as research, and I realized that at one point he had compiled some research on how food has been the only proven solution to help even people who were what he called at the time sexual delinquents change their behavior. Food can change behavior, and it's proven scientifically. I am fascinated by that. I'm a biochemist by training. I've been recycled into the Spice Queen, and so I share about biochemistry, but in your kitchen with your food. So a couple tips about how you can reduce pain through food. I'm sure a couple of you have already heard some of these. It's mainly anti-inflammation type of tips. And it will also apply specifically to the menstrual cycle because of the kinds of hormones that are involved. So let's get started cooking, and then I'll share a few of the tips that I have for you here. So we're going to start with the rice, because while the rice is cooking, then we can prepare the vegetables that are going into the rice. And my goal is for it to be a 15-minute recipe. Okay, so I'm sharing at the same time. It might be a little bit longer. And I wanted to share a couple ways that you can cook the rice. So the way I'm going to do it is going to be here. I'm going to prepare it in our multi-purpose pot, so it's really practical. It's very small, but it actually is. It's very small as far as the size underneath, so you can put it on the small part here on the when you cook it. But it actually contains a lot. You can make like up to 8 cups of food. It has these little, holes here so you can strain, and the larger one's there, and it's a spout. And then this handle here, it doesn't get hot. And it's very easy, this part and this part are very easy for people who have pain in their joints, in their wrists or whatever, or for small hands who want to cook as well. So I'm going to use this, and I love to prepare my rice with a little bit of oil. So if you're trying to avoid oil, don't do this. You can prepare it without oil. I love to prepare it with a little bit of oil. So you could use just regular olive oil, or you could use, what I use is coconut oil. Coconut oil. So I'm just going to put a little bit of coconut oil, and I'm going to start preparing my rice. So I'm kind of going to fry the rice before I cook it in a little bit of the coconut oil. I love doing that because it gives it a little taste. I also find that it sticks better to the spices when I put them in there. So, of course, if you're trying to reduce the amount of oil that you are using or eating, then this is not a good tip for you. You can do it without the oil here. I'm just going to put that down here. And then I'm going to use my rice. So I have some whole grain rice here in my container. And you could use whatever rice you have at home. It could be white rice, it could be wild rice, of course, and you need to just check the time for cooking. And in some cases, it will about take 15 minutes, like I said, if it's longer cooking rice, okay? So I'm going to use my prep bowl here. Hopefully I have one nearby. I'll use a measuring spoon here. I forgot to bring over my little bowl, so I'm going to use like a measuring spoon here to measure some of the rice. Put it in here. And I'm just going to fry that a little bit in the coconut oil before cooking the rice. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm also adding lentils, so I want the lentils to cook at the same time as the rice. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to cook lentils and rice together. I'm not very satisfied with the results, so I just cook them separately. But if you have a tip to cook lentils and rice at the same time, let me know. I'm going to prepare some brown lentils because protein is really good also for when you're wanting to avoid pain. I know I need a lot of protein. I used to be actually, I was really almost, I couldn't even move. I was in so much pain. I had some chronic pain for several years, and under control mostly because of the amount of protein I'm able to eat from vegetables, from plant-based protein. So I have some lentils here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I love doing this. Again, I'm going to add a little bit of coconut oil here, and then I'm going to add the lentils. I love frying before eating it, and I just put a little bit, and it's just so that the rice is thick and it's yummy. So once it started, I'll use 2 different spoons. Once it started, then I'll just add some water to it. I just want to make sure it's all coated with a little bit of coconut oil. You can use olive oil, you can use whatever oil you have. You can also just not use oil. Like I said, you definitely can go directly put the water in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and add some water in here right away. I'm going to add some water in here, and this rice just needs to cook for about 15 minutes. But we'll be done with this recipe before that because I have a magical way of finishing the recipe quicker when I'm showing it on the video. And then my lentils are going to be frying in the coconut oil. And in a little bit I'll add water, and those I usually cook for about 15 minutes. So there are different lentils that I can use. I use the coral lentils. I don't know if I have an example here. If I use this type of lentil, they take less time. It actually would be like 10 minutes or less. And if I use the brown or the green lentils, they cook from 15 to 30 minutes. So very simple. Water, boil water, that's what I do. I fry them first. Of course, you don't have to do that step. And if you really wanted a simple, easy, very simple way to make it, you can use a steamer. Habegger has a steamer, so Habegger has meal solutions as far as food, also meal solutions as far as utensils. So the steamer goes in the microwave. So you could actually make rice in just a couple minutes in the microwave without any oil, and it would be very simple. And this is super easy to wash. I mean, it just, you even have to be careful because it gets so soft when it's hot. You want to make sure you don't get hurt when you remove the cooked rice. But it's just so easy to clean and everything. We wash everything by hand at home. We don't use a dishwasher, but if you want to use a dishwasher, this is dishwashable too. So we have the rice is cooking, the lentils are cooking. I'll be adding some water in a little bit. Now we're going to look at the veggies. And that's where I'm going to share some of the tips that I have about how to reduce menstrual cramps. Some of this applies to other regular, all types of pain, of course. And so one thing that people have been asking, perhaps that would help, is to know why is there pain when we have our menstruation. So it has to do with a couple different things. Some of them we have chemicals that help us expel, menstrual blood. So that can cause muscle cramps. And there's also some of the prostaglandins, which we have some of the hormones or other chemicals that are coming into our bloodstream to regularize all of that, can cause lots of things. I mean, all other things than just pain. So one of the things that people have looked at is estrogen. So one thing is I'll be talking about recipes to use when we have menstrual pain, but honestly the biggest difference is over a very long amount of time. So one specific tip that I could share is to reduce flow and perhaps help also with the pain is simply using cloth, not using any plastic for our menstrual items because they have chemicals in them. They're bleach. You don't want that anywhere where you're putting it for your period. I mean, really not. And it's something that can be replaced by a whole bunch of other alternatives, and that can actually make a difference for us. And I realize some of the men watching may not find this necessarily interesting, but it's applicable to so many other aspects of our lives. Eliminating toxic chemicals that we are putting into our food and into our body is usually the key to reducing most of the chronic pain and illnesses related to that. Of course, there are others that may need medication or other kinds of interventions, and of course, a doctor would be able to help with that. So, foods that fight inflammation. A lot of the things I'm cooking actually today is a recipe based on this, okay? So, you want to have plant-based food. Vegetarians, they were right. Plant-based eating can help you reduce pain. It helps reduce inflammation and also cramps. So that's one tip I'm going to give you. And the recipe I'm making today is an awesome vegetarian alternative. If you'd like to try something different, rice and lentils, you would not need to add anything, any kind of animal products to it. So I'm going to add some water to my lentils. Now they're all nice and golden because of the coconut oil. And like I said, you don't need to add any oil, but I love to add a little bit of oil, or I add some coconut oil. So I'll add some water now, and it will be ready in about 10 minutes. So plant-based foods can help with pain, menstrual cramps or other types of pain, whole plant-based foods, and whole grains. So whole grains also can help. These are foods that would reduce inflammation in the body. So whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds. If you can eat nuts, then you could add that to this meal. It would be very good. I'm making a comfort dish also. So it's the comfort warm dish that you can have in a time where perhaps your emotional life is more difficult or you're in pain. It's also just a yummy meal for any time. We eat this every week in my house. So plant-based eating, whole grain foods, and vegetables. What are the vegetables I'm going to add today? I read a lot about some of the types of vegetables that are good for us, so I decided to follow a list here. So I have some broccoli, and then I have some mushrooms. Mushrooms add a lot of different kinds of nutrients, and they actually have a lot of protein. So for me, that's really good for the chronic pain that I've managed through food, and it actually could be really good also for menstrual cramps. So of course choose food that you like. I'm also going to add some peas for color. I really like color. I love having all different kinds of color of food in my food. So as far as the broccoli, I'm just going to cut it up in pieces. So you can, because you're going to mix it into the rice and it's not necessarily going to be cooked so much, you could fry it too if you want to. I just add it to my rice and my lentils once they're cooked, once they're almost cooked. So it's not going to be cooked in itself. You may want to cut smaller pieces of the broccoli so that it will cook faster. Of course, if you prefer to fry it, or if you want to cook the broccoli first, then you could use bigger pieces of it. And then the mushrooms will be the same. Cut small pieces of it, very small pieces. It's up to you. You may actually like the raw vegetables, so if you don't mind them raw, you can just cut them in whatever size piece you'd like. You don't even have to cook them. You just add them to the finished rice and lentils. Okay, so I cut my mushrooms here. I'm using a ceramic knife. It's very, very sharp, very quick and easy to use. And I guess I'll do one more mushroom. So the goal is to get all the vegetables cut before my lentils and rice are ready so that we can eat them all together at the same time. So I have broccoli, mushrooms, peas, and then I'm going to add some carrots too. That's for the color. That wasn't even in my list about chronic pain. I'm going to add it for color. And I thought I could use my veggie slicer. It's a very small, practical veggie slicer. And it will be more for show because I wanted to show you these really fun things that you can make with carrots. So you can use this slicer to make little carrot ribbons. So I'm going to make that. And I'm going to add that to my rice in the very end. I'll show you the result. So make little strips of carrots. If they're too long, like spaghetti, carrot spaghetti. If the pieces are too long, so this is what it makes. With the slicer, see how fun it is? Isn't that comforting? I think color and fun stuff makes it easier to go through pain. So it's my extra little tip, but it was not in my article about chronic pain. So if the pieces are too big, you can just cut them smaller with a knife. So everything here is on its way to be ready. So what other tips did I have in my list here? This is so quick, I have more time to share with you. So one of the reasons that animal products are not so great for pain is that it can increase levels of estrogen in your body. So if that's related, then you might want to be watching estrogen-based foods that you consume. Okay. One thing that could help is a low-fat, high-fiber. So maybe in that case, if you find that that's the case, you could try with no oil or less oil. I just put a little teeny, like half a teaspoon of coconut oil in mine, so for me that works really well. But if you're wanting to cut the oil because it may help with your pain, you could do the same recipe with no oil at all. And let me see what else. I have all these tips I wanted to share with you. So the whole grains, the brown rice, the vegetables, broccoli, if you have spinach, sweet potatoes, Swiss chard, Brussels sprouts, if you love them, I do. Legumes, beans, so I have the lentils here. You could also eat fruit. They say fruit is really good. So one thing I could have added, I forgot, sometimes I do add, is I actually add little pieces of orange to some of my salads or dishes, so you could add that. Completely avoid animal products, fish, poultry, meats, eggs, and dairy products. Avoid refried grains. That's just like something that's tough for anybody's body, whether you're menstruating or not. It says to avoid your vegetable oil, so oils that are based on a vegetable, the kind that we put in, that some people put in salad. I never, like you can see my containers full, we never use it, actually. fatty foods, you know, the ones you really crave. It's like donuts, cheese, French fries, potato chips. Avoid those. So of course these sound like big changes maybe, but it just depends on what's worth it, the change that you can make. So let's go back to our recipe now. There's the rice is almost ready. The lentils are getting there as well. Here. Our vegetables are ready too. And I'm actually going to prepare the final dish with you before this is cooked. I prepared some ahead of time to make a demo, so this is not very long. I wanted to get to the end quickly, so even though this is still cooking, I prepared some ahead of time, and I'm going to show you how I prepare my dish. So it looks good, it's yummy, and it's my comfort dish. It could be called a nourish bowl, though nourish bowl has certain elements to it, and they may not all be there with my recipe. So I'm going to prepare this dish here. I'm going to take a bowl. This is my comfort bowl. You can have your own. You know, sometimes we have our favorite bowl or favorite color or favorite dish. That's okay. That's fine. That's what we're going to do. And then I'm going to use something here to, I'll just use this here. So I'm going to put some rice. That's all whole grains. So remember, this is just because I prepared it ahead of time. So I had some ready to show you already. So I have our whole grain rice. And then I have some lentils that were already ready. And then I have some vegetables. So I have the mushrooms, the broccoli, the peas, okay, here. You could add any other vegetable you want. I'm going to add the carrots, but before I do that, see, I have my rice, lentils, peas, mushrooms, and broccoli, and I haven't added any spices yet or anything to give it some taste. So if you like it like this is fine. But I'm going to give you a few tips on how to season this before I put the carrot on top. So a couple of things you could do. One thing that's really yummy is we have a spice blend called lemon dill. Here, lemon dilly. It has lemon and dill. It's lemon dilly. It has only that in it, no other ingredient. And it's fresh because it's in a glass jar. You can make up to 10 cups of dip if you wanted to make a lemon dilly dip with mayonnaise and sour cream or yogurt, but we're going to put it on our rice. You could put it when you're cooking. You could put it in the rice as it's cooking. That's one thing you could do. You could also make a dip or a sauce to go with your meal. I'm just going to put some on top because that's the way I like to do it. Then the lentils, you could also add different spice blend to your lentils, a different spice blend to your vegetables. You can use our dressing mixes, for example. So I have an example here is our Greek salad dressing. So I could put that on top of the vegetables, for example. You can mix and match, and you can add one or more. I'm also going to use some sea salt and black pepper. So I have some grinders for that. Of course, you may want to be avoiding salt. That could help. A good suggestion is to avoid the salt, but or in moderation, of course. And then on top of that, I'm going to put my carrots. And one more thing, I really like avocados. I grew up in the French Caribbean, and we had an avocado tree, so I love avocados. I miss that tree. And so I have avocados whenever I can. I'm just going to add a little slice of avocado here. It's my favorite. So just a slice of avocado here. And now I'm going to show you the results, okay? So this is a comfort bowl. Some people call it a nourish bowl, though I'm not sure all the elements are there for an actual nourish bowl. I would have added some pieces of orange. I like to do that sometimes for color and also for variety. And also in the list of food that is good for pain, I was in there, fruit. And then so we have the rice, the lentils, the vegetables, and now I'm going to show you the results. So here we go. What do you think of that? Does it make you want to taste it? So we get to do all the taste testing at home. And so that's the end of this recipe. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to know what other tips you'd like to learn about food and science and how we can use what's been researched in our kitchen to make our lives happier and healthier. I hope the tips were helpful to you. I will share the articles I based my research on, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. All my videos are on YouTube as well. Please share, like, comments, give me your own suggestions and ideas, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon.